Thanks for the introduction, Lynn. Yes, I'm not too sure that I'm the world's best timekeeper myself. It's a process, and I'm also busy learning and trying to apply the 4 principles that I'm about to preach to you today. So I need to practice as well what I preach too. The 4 principles I'm talking about today are 4 behaviors, and we're not talking about kind of planning your day in your diary and looking for the next week and the next month and the next year. What we're doing is we're going to explore 4 specific behaviors that determine exactly how successful you are in anything that you do. So these are not behaviors that are peculiar to your business. These are behaviors that you can apply to anything in life, and it helps you, in fact, to maintain a life balance. And we'll see a little bit more of that as we go along. It will kind of expose itself in that way. So behavior is actually something that, as Chris van der Leij put in his earlier presentation, he talked about changing your mindset, being able to train your mind to be able to do things that allow you to perform better, more positively, more productively. And this is a continuation of that, but it's getting down to the real nitty-gritty, the hardcore stuff that sort of says, okay, what are the things I've got to look at specifically, and how do I go about doing that? So these behaviors are 4 behaviors that essentially are non-negotiable behaviors. They're 4 non-negotiable motivators to success. Why they're non-negotiable is that without them, you will not achieve. So whatever level of achievement you've reached to date, you've been using these motivators and these behaviors. You've been utilizing them. But what you've got to ask yourself at the end of this presentation is, have I been utilizing them optimally? Have I been utilizing them to the best effect imaginable or possible? Okay, so let's just look at a little bit broader at behavior. What we find in the world today is that there is a plethora, an absolute oversupply of information on how to succeed. The internet is full of it. Google is full of it. There are thousands of trainers running around telling you how to do it, what to do, etc. This whole topic of success or self-actualization is a huge topic. In fact, it's so big, it is the 3rd most prominent knowledge resource on the internet. The first one, sadly, being pornography, the second one being religion, and the third topic on the internet is self-actualization. So there's more than enough information out there to learn how to succeed, and yet let's say 80 to 90% of people don't achieve the kind of success that they would like to achieve, or that they set out to achieve in the first place. And you've got to ask yourself, why should this be? There's so much information out there. You've got to come to the conclusion at the end of the day that it's not knowledge that makes you succeed. I mean, obviously it's a part of achieving. It's a part of success. And it's a tool that you use in order to succeed. But essentially, your top achievers have an attitude. They have a behavior and a mental approach to what they do and how they approach it. And they seem to succeed a lot more easily than other people do. And it's not an easy thing, because these 4 behaviors are not easy. There's no doubt about that. It starts basically with, do you really know what it is that you want? And Lynn talked about that yesterday. She talked about, are you absolutely focused on what it is you really want in your life? And don't answer that with money, because money is just a byproduct. Money is not a focus. Money is a byproduct of achieving what you set out to achieve. So if you want to be a brain surgeon, that you're not being a brain surgeon in order to make money, because if you're only focusing on making money, you'll never be the brain surgeon, because you're not focusing on your studies. You're not focusing on what it is you need to do to enter university, what kind of grades you need to get. You're not focusing on a study program. You're not focusing on on the subjects and the topics that you require in order to be a brain surgeon. You're not going through all the motions, and you're not dedicating the time in order to do that. So what you really need to know first is, what is it you're trying to achieve? I always equate it to sort of, okay, I'm going on a trip, but I don't know where I'm going. So how do I know what route to take? I have no idea what route to take. But if I've determined, okay, I'm going to Johannesburg, I know immediately that Windhoek is probably not a good option to go via Windhoek, unless, of course, I feel like going the long way around. But in order to get there, to go the shortest route, I know that the N1 is the better option. So I look at the N1 and I see what kind of goals I need to achieve along the N1 to get to my dream, which is to arrive in Johannesburg. And not only that, I also know what to pack in my car, and I also know how much money I require. I know all of these things before I actually even start, and I'm prepared now in order to go. So if you don't know what it is that you really want, then how can you focus on what you need to get there? So this is one of the first steps that we've got to take, and Lynn covered that yesterday. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but you'll see how important it is as I go on with this particular part of the presentation. So let's take a look at motivator number one. Now, motivator number one is a genuine barrier, and it is peculiar to every single human being out there, bar perhaps a few, because they're taking what this is and turning it into an advantage. One of the biggest behavior stoppages in our lives is human behavior, natural human behavior, what we naturally do and what we naturally don't do, what we naturally gravitate towards and what we naturally shy away from or pull ourselves back from. And one of the things that we naturally move away from, or move towards, sorry, I should say, is we like to relax. We like to chill out. We love to be able to be entertained. We love to be able to do the things that we want to do rather than the things that we have to do. And this is the difference between people that don't achieve and people that are high achievers, top-end achievers. Low-end achievers do what they want to do first. Then they do what they can do. So, okay, what I want to do is I want to be a brain surgeon. Okay, so what can I do right now in order to do that? Okay, I can go and have a look up on the internet and see what courses I can do, what universities hold it, etc. And only eventually, when it really comes down to university deadline time, do we do what you must do, which is actually register. That's the first thing you've got to do. You're not going to be a brain surgeon until you register for university. That's like your minimum requirement. And even before that, you actually need some kind of grades from school days to be able to get into university. So even that you've got to do first. You've got to do ahead. But let's say, for example, you've now got your grades. Now you've got to enter university. That's the first thing you've got to do. Now, what we must do first is what the successful people do so well. They turn this whole paradigm around. They do what they must do first, then do what they can do in order later to be able to do what they want to do. And you can see the people around you we always look at successful people and say, gee, look what they do. They have parties, they have fun, they go out on boats, they fly airplanes, they do all these incredible things. However, before they got to that point of what they wanted to do, they first did what they must do. They must do something in order to earn that money, in order to be able to have that freedom. So are we doing what we must do first, then do what we can do in order to be able to do what we want to do? Okay, motivator number two. Motivator number two is something that's going to jar you a little bit. It's going to shake your foundation a little bit because it's an ugly word. But if we can turn this ugly word or this ugly concept into something of an advantage for you, in other words, we can utilize it to actually achieve rather than to draw us back or pull us back or make us shy away from things. This word is sacrifice. This behavior is sacrifice. Now, immediately you say to yourself, oh, the last thing I want to do is sacrifice anything. I just don't even want to go there. I mean, why must I sacrifice? I can do things without sacrificing. But if you think very carefully about becoming an entrepreneur, the first time you become an entrepreneur, before you actually started, you had a life. And your life is full. It's full to the brim. Quite often you probably found yourself saying, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to go and spend time with a friend because I want to go to the movies. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. And often you're telling yourself you don't have time, but everybody has the same amount of time. So you actually do have the time, but you're not prepared to sacrifice in order to do the things that you need to do rather than do the things that you want to do. So if you look at sacrifice as a time management tool, you begin to realize that this is actually a very effective time management tool because you learn to get rid of the things that you don't need in your life, the things you don't need in your business, the things that are not going to take you to the destination that you want to go to. So if you're going off to Johannesburg, it's going to be pretty much a waste of time, largely, to pack a couple of surfboards on top of your roof and pack your board shorts in there. So you're not going to do that. So you sacrifice the surfing and the board shorts in order to go up to Johannesburg, and you pack other things in, like perhaps a couple of gambling chips to take with you to Sun City. But sacrifice is what you need to do and what everybody needs to do. If you look at an athlete, an Olympic athlete, so you want to be an Olympic athlete, do you think these guys don't have to sacrifice an enormous amount in their lives to be able to achieve what they have achieved? An enormous amount. They can't put everything on top of what they're already doing in life. They have to give something up. So when you started as an entrepreneur, your life was full. Now you want to put a business on top of that. Guess what? You're going to feel completely overwhelmed unless you give up a whole lot of things that are not going to get you to your goal. And that doesn't just necessarily mean your business. It could be your marriage, for example. What do you need to sacrifice? Do you need to sacrifice that Saturday morning golf in order to make it up with your wife so that your relationship can be stronger? Sacrifice is a really good time management tool to be able to use in your life, and a very effective one. And the degree of sacrifice that you make consciously determines the degree of success you have in any field. It may be just in dealing with your children. It may be in dealing with your church. It may be in dealing with your sport, some kind of sport. It may be in dealing with your health issues. There are certain things you're going to have to sacrifice to get up in the morning and go to gym. You're going to have to sacrifice some sleep time if you get up at 5 o'clock. So sacrifice is once you're aware of it, it becomes a very useful tool to use in order to start achieving things. And this allows you also to get a really good balance in your life. So if you apply sacrifice to all the life things that you experience, your family, your sport, your business, etc., you can actually then use it in order to gain some kind of balance in your life. One thing to remember is that if you don't sacrifice for what you want, and this is a reality, if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes the sacrifice. Let's go back to the brain surgeon. If I don't sacrifice time to study, then I fail my exam, which means I don't become a brain surgeon. So I didn't sacrifice for what I wanted. Therefore, what I wanted, which was to be a brain surgeon, became the sacrifice. I lost that dream. That dream has gone out the window. I had an idea, and I didn't sacrifice in order to pursue that idea. Therefore, the idea becomes the sacrifice. The idea doesn't happen at the end of the day. So sacrifice becomes an incredibly important part of your own self-discipline, and it's a tool that you can use in order to achieve. So let's look at motivator 3. Again, another jarring word, a word that people kind of shudder at when they're exposed to it, and that's the word commitment. There's a study done in the Netherlands that says that the new generation is not dedicated to commitment. In fact, they have a lovely phrase where they say the last thing that the new generation is prepared to commit to is commitment. Well, maybe that is the case, and maybe the research shows that, but that's not something new. A resistance to commitment is inbred in all of us. We don't want to commit to things that we need to do or that we must do, as opposed to committing to things that we want to do. If we commit to things that we want to do, that's not a problem. It doesn't become an issue. So if you have a skill, for example, and you love your skill, you enjoy your skill, and you love doing it, it's easy to commit to the skill. But suddenly now, as an entrepreneur, you've got to have another skill, which is called administration. Oh, that's not a skill that you necessarily enjoy. You don't like administration, but you have to commit to administration, because if you don't commit to that administration, then your business is not going to grow. You're not going to get your money. You're not going to be able to see the rewards, and you're not going to make progress and grow in your business. So commitment is a very strong part of the discipline that you require in it. And what commitment does is it helps you to stay on the path. It helps you to keep focused on that path that you're going on. So sacrifice is a great tool to get rid of all the rubbish around you. Now the path is clear. Commitment helps you to stay on that path, to maintain that path, and to see it to the end, to see that N1 all the way to Johannesburg. Commitment is what transforms a promise or an idea or a dream into reality. Commitment turns it into the reality. Until you committed, that reality won't materialize. So you need to commit to the things that you must do, not to the things that you want to do. Okay, the last motivator 4, is consequence. And consequence is an interesting one because this is a behavior that is the ultimate time manager. There is no time manager better than this. Why I say that is that every thought, every decision you make, everything you say, and everything that you do has a corresponding consequence. And there are two consequences that we experience. There's a high value consequence and there's a low value consequence. And these determine how you spend your time. So if I'm putting, let's put it in a simple format. If I'm preparing my day in my diary, I'll put down a list of all the things I want to do in my day, okay, hour by hour. I can put down each and everything. But how often do we investigate the high or the low consequence value of the things that we've put in our diary? We say to ourselves, okay, I need to do this, but do you actually need to do it? Have you really explored the consequence of it? I need to go to a meeting with John. Do you really need to go to a meeting with John? Could you not do something else that has a higher level of consequence value than having that meeting with John? Perhaps that meeting with John could just be a quick email, and it doesn't have to be a meeting. What is the consequence of that meeting? How high is the value of the consequence of that meeting? And you can apply that to all kinds of things. It's like going to play golf. How high is the value, the consequential value of going to play golf versus the consequential value of spending some really special time with your wife and taking her out and doing something and sharing something together? Which one has the highest consequence value? So if you understand the concept of consequence, then you can begin to manage your life a whole lot more effectively, and you can become 10 times more productive. You look at this guy here. This guy understands the idea of consequence. Now, I don't know if any of you know this guy, but I'm sure a number of you do. But this guy, you say to yourself at the end of the day, you say to yourself, how does this guy get to do all the things he gets to do? How does he have the time to fly balloons in the stratosphere, to race big speedboats across and yachts across the Atlantic and try and break all kinds of records? How does he manage 30 companies, on the board of directors of 30 companies? How does he manage that? How does he run an airline? How does he run all the other businesses, the gyms and everything that he runs? Where does he get the time to do that and still have the fun that he has? Well, guess what? He's got exactly the same amount of time every day as you and I have. He doesn't have more time. He has the identical amount of time. What he does is he understands the consequence of every action that he takes. He understands the sacrifice that he had to make to get there, to get to where he is today. He had understood all of the values, the 4 values that I've presented here to you today. Highly successful people simply adopt these 4 things better than anybody else. And as they learn to adopt, for many of us, it's a learned practice. For guys like this, it probably comes naturally. It's a logic that he understands perfectly. And that's why some people achieve very high levels of success, and other people with the same amount of knowledge don't achieve the same amount of success. These guys use their time better. They use it understanding the concept of sacrifice, commitment, and consequence. And they understand that human nature doesn't get them to places that they want to get to. They have to change their natural human nature. They have to shift their minds in order to achieve that. Remember something very clearly. You are free to choose. Nobody's stopping you from making choices, but you're not free from the consequence of your choice. So whatever choice you make in your day, from the moment you wake up in the morning, whatever choice you make has a consequence. And if you understand that, then you can begin to actually plan and prepare your day much more effectively. Okay, so why is it so hard and yet so important? I think here we go, we kind of go full circle. We come back to human nature. It's so hard because human nature gravitates towards the things we want to do rather than the things we must do. And it's important, these things are important because I know that you want to succeed. I know that I want to succeed. And I know that these 4 things are going to help me to get there. These 4 tools are going to help me towards a mind shift that'll take me maybe not as far as the Virgin Active guy. It's maybe not going to take me as far as that. But at the same time, it is going to get me higher than where I am now. And that is not too difficult to understand. So these 4 things are the things that help you to focus very closely and very tightly on what needs to be done in your life. And I certainly know that I haven't got that much time in my life in order to truly succeed and achieve the things that I want to achieve. So I need to practice these things a lot more effectively. And that is exactly what I've set out to do. So thanks very much, everybody. That's the end of the session. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask me. And if you have any questions later, please feel free to contact us on the email address down below, or go to our website and have a look there, and our contact details are there as well. Thank you very much for attending today, and I'll take your questions now. Thanks a lot.